Hello, my dear witches and wizards. It's James. Tonight, we're going on a gentle journey through the hidden corners, mysterious magic, and forgotten histories of the wizarding world. So grab your favorite blanket, maybe a warm cup of tea if you're still awake enough for that, and let's settle in together. This is going to be a long, relaxing exploration, and I promise we'll take our time with everything. There's no rush here, just stories and secrets waiting to be shared. Let's begin. When we think about the Harry Potter series, we often remember the big moments, the epic battles, the friendships and heartbreaks. But there's so much beneath the surface, isn't there? So much lore that J.K. Rowling wove into this world, sometimes in interviews, sometimes in companion books, sometimes just in the tiny details scattered throughout the 7 novels. So, let's start with something that always fascinated me: the nature of dark magic itself. What exactly makes something dark? It's a question that doesn't have a simple answer, which is part of what makes it so interesting. In the wizarding world, certain spells and objects are classified as dark, but the line isn't always clear. Take the unforgivable curses, for instance. The Imperious Curse, which controls another person's will completely. The Cruciatus Curse, which causes unbearable pain. And of course, Avada Kedavra, the Killing Curse. These are illegal, period, and using any of them on another human being earns you a one-way trip to Azkaban. The Ministry is very clear about that. But then you have other magic that walks a finer line. Sectum Sempra, the spell that Snape invented and Harry used on Draco in the 6th book, causes terrible slashing wounds and can absolutely be lethal, but it's not classified as unforgivable. Then there are objects like cursed necklaces or rings that carry dark enchantments meant to harm whoever touches them. I think what defines dark magic isn't always the spell itself, but the intent behind it and the cost of using it. Dark magic often requires something from the caster, something beyond just saying the words and waving a wand. It feeds on negative emotions, on hatred and cruelty, on the willingness to cause suffering. Bellatrix Lestrange tells Harry this in the 5th book, remember? When he tries to use the Cruciatus Curse on her, she laughs and says, "You have to really mean it. You have to want to cause pain, to enjoy it." That's chilling, isn't it? The idea that to use certain magic effectively, you have to let it change you, have to embrace something dark within yourself. And nothing embodies this cost more than Horcruxes. Oh, Horcruxes. This is some of the darkest, most disturbing magic in the entire series. And for good reason. The very concept is horrifying when you really think about it. A Horcrux is an object in which a witch or wizard has hidden a fragment of their soul in order to achieve a form of immortality. As long as the Horcrux exists, the person cannot truly die. Even if their body is destroyed, that fragment of soul keeps them tethered to the living world. But here's the truly awful part. The only way to split your soul is to commit murder. Taking another person's life is such a violent, unnatural act that it literally tears the soul apart. And then, through a dark ritual that's so terrible Rowling has never fully described it, the murderer can encase that fragment in an object. Voldemort took this further than anyone in history. Most dark wizards who've made Horcruxes, and there haven't been many because it's so taboo even among dark wizards, most have made just one. But Voldemort wanted to go beyond even that. He aimed to split his soul into 7 pieces, 7 being the most powerfully magical number. Think about what that means. 6 murders, 6 intentional soul fragments hidden away, plus the piece that remained in his body. Of course, he actually ended up creating 7 Horcruxes, because the night he tried to kill Harry, the curse rebounded and accidentally turned Harry himself into one, but that wasn't planned. Let's talk about each of them, because their hiding places tell us so much about Voldemort's psychology. First, there was Tom Riddle's diary, which we meet in Chamber of Secrets. He made this one during his time at Hogwarts after he opened the chamber and the basilisk killed Myrtle. He poured not just a soul fragment into it, but also memories, essentially creating a preserved version of his 16-year-old self. Then there was Marvolo Gaunt's ring, which held the Resurrection Stone, though Voldemort didn't know that. This was his mother's family heirloom, representing his connection to Salazar Slytherin. Dumbledore destroyed this one, and it cost him his hand, and eventually his life. Salazar Slytherin's locket was another family treasure, stolen from Hepzibah Smith. Voldemort hid this one in the cave by the sea, the same place where, as a young orphan named Tom Riddle, he'd tormented 2 other children. He protected it with Inferi and a terrible potion. Helga Hufflepuff's cup, also stolen from Hepzibah Smith, was hidden in Bellatrix Lestrange's Gringotts vault, protected by the deepest, most secure magical safeguards available. Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem, lost for centuries, was hidden in the Room of Requirement at Hogwarts. Voldemort believed he was the only one who discovered that room, of course, which shows you how his arrogance was always his weakness. Nagini, his snake, was unusual as a living Horcrux. He made her one after he killed Bertha Jorkins and kept her close to him always. And finally, Harry himself, the accidental Horcrux, carrying a piece of Voldemort's soul from the night his parents died until he walked into the Forbidden Forest to sacrifice himself. That's one of the most beautiful and tragic elements of the whole story, isn't it? That Harry had to die, or at least be willing to die, to destroy that final piece. The first person to ever create a Horcrux was an ancient Greek dark wizard named Herpo the Foul. We don't know much about him, but the books mention he was also the first to breed a basilisk. Quite a resume, honestly. Just absolutely terrible achievements all around. After Herpo, knowledge of Horcruxes was suppressed. Even at Hogwarts, the information was removed from the library. When Tom Riddle asks Slughorn about them, you can see how horrified Slughorn is, how he realizes he's said too much. It's knowledge that no one should have, because the very act of seeking it suggests terrible intent. Destroying a Horcrux is nearly as difficult as creating one. The fragment of soul inside is protected by powerful magic, so you need something equally powerful to destroy it. Basilisk venom works, as does fiend fire, that cursed fire that Crabbe unleashes in the Room of Requirement. The Sword of Gryffindor, after it's been impregnated with basilisk venom when Harry kills the basilisk in the chamber, becomes a Horcrux-destroying weapon. It's fitting, really, that the tools of destruction come from facing other dark magic head-on. From Horcruxes, let's turn to another dark legend, the Deathly Hallows. These 3 objects, the Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, and the Invisibility Cloak, are wrapped up in the tale of the 3 brothers, that children's story Hermione reads in Deathly Hallows. 3 brothers meet death at a river, and each asks for a gift. The oldest wants the most powerful wand ever made. The middle brother wants the power to recall the dead. And the youngest, the wisest, simply asks for something that will let him leave without death following. Death grants their wishes, but it's a trap for the first 2 brothers. The Elder Wand gets its owner killed by someone seeking its power. The Resurrection Stone brings back only a shadow of the loved one. driving its owner to suicide to truly join them. But the cloak protects its owner until he's ready to greet death as an old friend. Now, whether death actually made these items, or whether three brilliant brothers simply created them and the story grew in the telling, we're never quite sure. But the objects are real enough. The Elder Wand has the most documented and bloody history. It's passed from owner to owner through violence and murder for centuries. Grigorovich had it, then Grindelwald stole it, and became one of the most dangerous dark wizards in history before Dumbledore defeated him and claimed the wand. Then Draco Malfoy became its master when he disarmed Dumbledore, though he never even touched it. And finally, Harry when he disarmed Draco. The wand's whole existence is a trap, really. Everyone who seeks it for power ends up dead. The Resurrection Stone is more quietly tragic. Cadmus Peverell used it to bring back the girl he loved, but she was only a shadow, cold and removed, suffering from being pulled back from her rest. Eventually, he killed himself to join her properly. The stone passed through generations until it ended up in the Gaunt family ring. Dumbledore, brilliant as he was, let his emotions overcome his judgment when he saw it. He wanted so desperately to see his sister Ariana again, to apologize, that he put on the ring without thinking. The curse on the ring would have killed him quickly if Snape hadn't contained it to his hand. Even then, Dumbledore knew he had perhaps a year to live. The cloak, though, the cloak is different. It's the only hallow that's pure, that doesn't corrupt or destroy. It's been passed down through the Peverell line to the Potters, and James used it, then left it in Dumbledore's care before he died. Dumbledore gave it to Harry that first Christmas at Hogwarts, and it served Harry faithfully. It's a true invisibility cloak, one that doesn't fade with age or wear out like normal ones do, one that can even hide the wearer from death himself. In the end, Harry keeps the cloak, masters the Elder Wand, but doesn't keep it, and lets the stone stay lost in the forest. He learned the lesson of the tale that it's the things we use to protect and not to conquer that truly have value. There are so many other dark objects scattered throughout the series too. That opal necklace in Borgin and Burke's that curses anyone who touches it, which Katie Bell nearly dies from. The cursed mead meant for Dumbledore that Ron accidentally drinks. Tom Riddle's diary, before anyone knew it was a Horcrux, was already trying to drain Ginny's life force and use her to open the chamber. Dark objects are fascinating because they're magical traps, really. They sit there looking tempting or innocuous, and then they strike. The Ministry's Department of Magical Law Enforcement has a whole division dedicated to tracking them down and destroying them. And speaking of dark forces, we should talk about Dementors. These are some of the most terrifying creatures in the entire wizarding world, and there's genuine debate about whether they were created or whether they came into being naturally. They guard Azkaban prison, or at least they did until after the war, and they feed on human happiness, draining every good feeling and memory until you're left with only despair. Being near them is like drowning in your worst moments. They're blind, but they sense emotions, sense the life and hope in people, and they're drawn to it like moths to flame. The books never quite explain their origin. Some magical historians believe they're some form of dark spirit that's always existed, manifestations of despair itself. Others think they might have been created by dark wizards long ago, though that seems almost too horrible to contemplate. Creating a being that feeds on happiness and can suck out souls? That would be beyond even Horcrux-level darkness. What we do know is that the Ministry made a devil's bargain with them. The Dementors guard Azkaban. They keep the prisoners contained, and in exchange they get to feed, not fatally, but constantly, on the misery concentrated in that terrible place. It's a form of torture, really. Even prisoners who've served their time and been released are never quite the same. The Dementor's kiss is the worst fate you can suffer. They remove their hood and clamp their mouth over yours and suck out your soul, leaving your body alive but empty. You're not dead, but you're not alive in any meaningful way either. Just an empty shell. The Ministry uses this as capital punishment for the worst criminals, which honestly feels barbaric when you think about it. Is it better or worse than death? I'm not sure anyone could answer that. After the Second Wizarding War, Kingsley Shacklebolt becomes minister, and one of his first acts is to remove the Dementors from Azkaban. They'd sided with Voldemort during the war anyway, because of course they did. Where else would they find more misery and fear to feed on than at Voldemort's side? Replacing them with proper guards, with actual justice instead of soul-sucking despair, was long overdue. Let's shift gears and talk about some of the incredible magical creatures in this world, starting with dragons. There are 10 main breeds of dragon recognized by the Ministry, and each one is fiercely dangerous and utterly fascinating. You've got the Hungarian horntail, which is generally considered the most vicious, all black scales and bronze horns and shooting fire up to 50 feet. That's what Harry faces in the first task of the Triwizard Tournament. Then there's the Swedish short snout, with its brilliant blue flame, the Chinese fireball, which shoots actual mushroom-shaped fire clouds, the common Welsh green, which is a bit more docile as dragons go, though docile is relative when discussing creatures that can roast you alive. The Romanian longhorn has those distinctive golden horns that are highly prized in wand-making and potion ingredients. Charlie Weasley works on a dragon reserve in Romania, studying them, caring for them, and he's got the burns to prove it's not an easy job. There's the Hebridean black, purple eyes and rough scales, native to the British Isles. The Norwegian ridgeback, which is what Hagrid tries to raise in his wooden hut, because of course he does. The Peruvian viper tooth, the smallest breed but also one of the fastest and most aggressive. The Antipodean opalai from New Zealand and Australia, with those stunning pearly scales. And the Ukrainian ironbelly, the largest breed of all, with metallic gray scales. Dragons are heavily regulated by the Ministry of Magic. They're too dangerous and too visible to be allowed to roam free. Dragon reserves exist around the world where they can live in something resembling their natural habitat while being monitored and studied. Every part of a dragon is valuable magically. Dragon Heartstring is one of the 3 most common wand cores, known for producing powerful wands, though they can be temperamental. Dragonhide makes protective gloves and clothing. Dragon blood has 12 uses, as Dumbledore discovered, according to his chocolate frog card. Dragon liver is used in potions. Even their dung is a good fertilizer for magical plants. But working with dragons is incredibly dangerous. They're not like other magical creatures that can be reasoned with or befriended. Dragons are forces of nature, pure power and fire and instinct. Then we have werewolves, and this is where the wizarding world's prejudices really come into sharp focus. Lycanthropy is treated as both a curse and a disease. It's passed through a bite from another werewolf, and once a month, at the full moon, the afflicted person transforms into a wolf. But not just any wolf. A werewolf has no human consciousness left. They're violent, they attack any human they encounter, and they're extremely dangerous. The transformation is incredibly painful, and Remus Lupin describes it as feeling like every bone in your body is breaking and reforming. Lupin's story is central to how we understand werewolves in the series. He was bitten as a very young child by Fenrir Greyback, the most savage werewolf in Britain. Greyback actually positions himself near children on purpose, deliberately infecting them because he wants to create more werewolves, and he has this twisted ideology about werewolves being superior. He even argues that werewolves should embrace their nature, hunt humans, give in to the violence. It's absolutely horrific. But Lupin takes the opposite approach. He sees his condition as a terrible affliction, something to be managed and controlled as much as possible. For most of his life, Lupin had to transform alone, had to lock himself away where he couldn't hurt anyone, and endure the agony and loneliness every single month. Then at Hogwarts, his friends James, Sirius, and Peter figured out what was happening and taught themselves to become animagi so they could keep him company in animal form, since werewolves don't attack animals the way they attack humans. It's such a powerful act of friendship. They literally changed their fundamental nature to help their friend through his worst moments. The breakthrough came with the Wolfsbane potion, developed by a wizard named Damocles Belby. If taken correctly in the week leading up to the full moon, it allows the werewolf to keep their human mind during transformation. They still transform, they're still a wolf, but they're themselves. They can control their actions. It's an incredibly difficult potion to brew, requires expensive ingredients, and has to be taken precisely. But it's life-changing for werewolves who can access it, and Lupin uses it during his time teaching at Hogwarts. The problem is most werewolves can't afford it, and can't find anyone willing to brew it for them, because the prejudice against werewolves is intense. They can't find employment most places. They're required to register with the ministry. They're feared and shunned even when in human form. The stigma meant that Lupin lived in poverty for most of his life, unable to hold down jobs, unable to tell anyone his secret. Even when Dumbledore hires him to teach at Hogwarts, it falls apart the moment the student's parents find out what he is. Never mind that he's an excellent teacher, that he never posed any danger to the students, that he took every precaution. The fear and hatred ran too deep. It's a really clear metaphor for how society treats people with chronic illnesses or conditions that make others uncomfortable. The wizarding world failed people like Lupin catastrophically. House elves are another fascinating and troubling aspect of wizarding society. These small magical creatures are enslaved to wizarding families, bound by powerful magic that compels their service. And yes, enslaved is the right word, even though the series sometimes dances around it. House elves are bound to serve. They cannot disobey direct orders, and they punish themselves brutally if they even speak against their masters or reveal their secrets. The magic that binds them is ancient and not fully explained, but it's clearly immensely powerful. What's strange is that many house elves seem content with this arrangement, or at least they've been so conditioned to it that they can't imagine anything else. Winky is devastated when Crouch frees her, sees it as a terrible shame. The Hogwarts house elves are shocked and insulted by Hermione's SPEW campaign, her attempt to free them. They see it as an attack on their way of life. Only Dobby, who suffered terrible abuse under the Malfoys, truly embraces freedom when Harry tricks Lucius into freeing him. And even Dobby still wants to work, still wants to serve. He just wants to choose his service and be paid for it. Creature's story is particularly interesting because we see his transformation. At first, he's bitter and hateful, still loyal to the Black family's pure blood ideology, resentful of Sirius for being a blood traitor. But when Harry treats him with kindness and respect, when Harry validates Regulus's sacrifice and lets Creature honor his dead master's memory, Creature becomes loyal and helpful. It shows that house elves are complex beings with deep emotions, capable of love and grief and choice, even within the constraints of their binding magic. The question of where house elves come from, how this system of magical enslavement started, is never really answered. It's an uncomfortable gap in the world building, honestly. Hermione's SPEW is treated as kind of a joke by most of the other characters, and the narrative doesn't fully grapple with the horror of a sentient species being magically enslaved. It's one of those elements where the real-world implications are darker than the books fully explore. By the end of the series, nothing has fundamentally changed for house elves as a whole, even though individuals like Dobby and Creature have found better situations. It's a reminder that even in a story about fighting against tyranny and prejudice, some systems of oppression remain unexamined. Thestrals are these beautiful, eerie creatures that only people who've witnessed death can see. They're skeletal horses with wings, with black leather like skin stretched over their bones, and white glowing eyes. To anyone who hasn't seen death, they're completely invisible. The Hogwarts grounds has a whole herd of them living in the forest, and they pull the carriages from the train to the castle, though most students think the carriages move on their own. Harry can see them starting in his 5th year, after watching Cedric die at the end of the Triwizard Tournament. It takes until the death registers emotionally, which is why he doesn't see them at the end of 4th year, but does when he returns to school. Luna Lovegood can see them too, and there's something quite perfect about Luna being one of the few people who can see and appreciate these creatures that most people fear or don't believe exist. Thestrals have a reputation for being omens of bad luck, which is nonsense. They're just creatures. But people fear them because they're associated with death, and they look unsettling. In truth, they're intelligent, loyal, and trainable. They have an incredible sense of direction and can travel tremendous distances. When Harry, Hermione, and Ron need to get to the Ministry in Order of the Phoenix, the Thestrals carry them there. They understand far more than people give them credit for. The Patronus charm is some of the most beautiful magic in the series, and also some of the most personal. It's the only spell that can repel Dementors, and it works by channeling your happiest memory, your strongest positive emotion, into a physical form. A full corporeal Patronus takes the shape of an animal, and that animal is deeply connected to who you are as a person. It's like a reflection of your soul, in a way, your true self taking a protective form. What determines the form is never fully explained, but it seems to be connected to your personality, your identity, perhaps your deepest self that you might not even fully recognize. Harry's is a stag, his father's animagus form, which is such a powerful connection to James and to the protection his parents gave him. Hermione's is an otter, playful and clever. Ron's is a Jack Russell Terrier, loyal and stubborn. Snape's is a doe, matching Lily's Patronus, showing that his love for her never faded, even after all those years, even after everything that happened between them. That reveal is one of the most heartbreaking moments in the series. Patronuses can change in very rare circumstances, usually after profound emotional trauma or when someone falls deeply in love. Tonks's Patronus changes to a wolf after she falls for Lupin, matching his affliction in this beautiful, tragic way. It shows how love can fundamentally alter who we are. But for most people, their Patronus is constant throughout their life, a steady representation of their core self. Learning the Patronus charm is incredibly difficult. Most adult wizards never manage a corporeal one. Even producing the silver mist that Dementors dislike takes practice and power. Harry teaching Dumbledore's army the spell in his 5th year, when he's only 15 himself, is actually a remarkable achievement. And the fact that so many of them succeed shows both Harry's teaching ability and the power of having a real reason to learn, a real threat to defend against. Now let's talk about Azkaban, because this is one of the most chilling places in the entire wizarding world. The prison fortress sits on an island in the North Sea, surrounded by icy water and hidden from Muggle view by powerful enchantments. It's where the Ministry sends convicted dark wizards and criminals, and it's a place of utter despair. Before Kingsley reformed the system, Dementors were the guards, which meant that every prisoner was subjected to constant psychological torture. Imagine living surrounded by creatures that drain every happy thought and memory from your mind, that force you to relive your worst moments over and over. There's no kindness, no hope, no light, just cold stone and the presence of Dementors pulling at your soul. The origins of Azkaban are actually quite dark. It was originally built as a fortress by a dark wizard named Ecrizdus in the 15th century. He used it to lure Muggle sailors to their deaths, torturing them for his own amusement. When he died, the concealment charms faded, and the Ministry found the place, along with the Dementors that had been drawn there by all the pain and misery Ecrizdus had created. Rather than destroying the Dementors, which perhaps they couldn't do, or finding another solution, the Ministry decided to use the fortress as a prison and the Dementors as guards. It's a perfect example of taking the easy, brutal solution rather than the ethical one. Notable prisoners over the years include some of the most dangerous witches and wizards in Britain. Bellatrix Lestrange was imprisoned there after torturing Frank and Alice Longbottom into insanity. She spent 14 years in Azkaban and came out even more unhinged and devoted to Voldemort than before, if that's possible. Sirius Black was sent there without a trial after supposedly betraying the Potters and killing 12 Muggles. He spent 12 years there, and the fact that he stayed sane enough to eventually escape is almost miraculous. He says it's because he knew he was innocent, and that knowledge, the truth of it, was something the Dementors couldn't take from him. Also, he could transform into a dog, and the Dementors are less affected by animal emotions than human ones, so he could slip in and out of his animagus form to get some respite. Barty Crouch Jr. was sent there after being convicted of being a Death Eater, and his mother loved him enough to swap places with him using Polyjuice Potion, dying in his place so he could escape. His father kept him under the Imperious Curse at home, hidden from the world, until Voldemort freed him and used him in the plan to capture Harry during the Triwizard Tournament. That whole story is so twisted and tragic, showing how even love can become something terrible. The mass breakout in Order of the Phoenix, when Voldemort's Death Eaters escape, shows how the Ministry's control was always tenuous. The Dementors were never truly loyal to the Ministry. They simply went where they could feed most easily. Once Voldemort offered them more freedom and more victims, they switched sides instantly. After the war, with Dementors removed and actual human guards and proper treatment, Azkaban is hopefully less of a nightmare. But it's still a prison, still a place where people are locked away. The difference is that now they're not being tortured every moment they're there. The Ministry of Magic itself is this fascinating bureaucratic institution that governs the wizarding community in Britain. It's located underground in London, accessible through a visitor's entrance that's a phone booth, and through the Flu network for employees. The ministry has 7 main departments, each handling different aspects of magical governance. The Department of Magical Law Enforcement is the largest, dealing with crimes, horrors, hit wizards, and the Wizengamot, which is the High Court. The Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes handles things like memory charms for when Muggles witness magic, and the Obliviator Squad, who specialize in modifying memories. The Department of Magical Transportation regulates everything from apparition to port keys to the Flu network. The Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures is responsible for everything from dangerous beasts to beings like goblins and centaurs, which is actually quite problematic because lumping sentient beings like goblins in with animals is deeply disrespectful. The Department of International Magical Cooperation maintains relationships with foreign wizarding governments and organizations. The Department of Magical Games and Sports oversees things like Quidditch regulations and the Tri-Wizard Tournament. And the Department of Mysteries, well, that's where things get really interesting. That's where unspeakables work on the deepest mysteries of magic. Things like time, death, love, thought, and space itself. The Minister for Magic is elected, though the process is never fully detailed. We see several ministers through the series. Cornelius Fudge is minister for most of Harry's time at Hogwarts, and he's a perfect example of a politician more concerned with maintaining power and appearances than doing what's right. His refusal to believe Voldemort had returned, his smear campaign against Harry and Dumbledore, his incompetence and cowardice, all of it led to the ministry being woefully unprepared when the Second War began. Rufus Scrimgeour replaces him and tries to present a stronger front, but he's still more concerned with propaganda than actual strategy. After Scrimgeour's death, the ministry falls under Voldemort's control with Pius Thicknesse as a puppet minister. Finally, Kingsley Shacklebolt takes over after the war and actually seems to be a genuinely good leader, implementing real reforms. The Wizengamot serves as both the High Court and a legislative body, with 50 members including the Chief Warlock and the Minister. They wear plum-colored robes and conduct trials for serious magical crimes. We see them in action when Harry is tried for using magic outside school, and when Dumbledore testifies in Karkaroff's trial in the Pensive Memory. The process seems somewhat fair, but it's also clear that politics and personal influence play a significant role in outcomes. Arthur Weasley works in the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office, a small department that's criminally underfunded, considering how important it is. He's responsible for tracking down illegal enchantments on Muggle objects, like the flying car he himself enchanted, which is hilarious and hypocritical, but also quite charming. His genuine fascination with Muggles and how they live without magic is endearing, even if he's constantly confused by things like electricity and telephones. His work may seem minor, but dark wizards enchanting Muggle objects to harm unsuspecting non-magical people is a real danger, as we see with the cursed items in Chamber of Secrets. Aurors are the elite magical law enforcement officers, like a combination of detectives and special forces. Becoming an Auror requires 5 newts with high marks, rigorous training, and passing incredibly difficult tests. The training takes 3 years and covers subjects like concealment and disguise, stealth and tracking, and dueling. Aurors like Tonks, Kingsley, and eventually Harry himself are responsible for catching dark wizards and fighting dangerous magical criminals. It's risky work, and many aurors died in both wizarding wars. The International Statute of Secrecy, established in 1692, is the foundation of how the wizarding world operates globally. It mandates that magical communities must hide themselves from muggles, that exposure of magic to the non-magical world must be prevented at all costs. Before this, the relationship between wizards and muggles was deteriorating badly. The witch burnings, though mostly ineffective because real witches and wizards could protect themselves with flame-freezing charms, created an atmosphere of fear and persecution. Magical children were in danger. Muggles were becoming more organized in their hunts, and something had to give. The statute was the solution, a complete separation. The International Confederation of Wizards enforces this worldwide, and each magical government is responsible for maintaining secrecy in their region. Blood status politics have poisoned wizarding society for centuries. The idea that pure blood wizards, those with no Muggle ancestry, are superior to half-bloods or Muggle-borns is the foundation of so much prejudice and violence. The Sacred 28 is a list published in the 1930s claiming to name the truly pure blood families remaining in Britain, families like the Malfoys, Blacks, Lestranges, and so on. Of course, the list is nonsense. Aside from the impossibility of truly knowing anyone's complete ancestry going back centuries, intermarriage with Muggles has happened throughout history, whether acknowledged or not. The Weasleys are mysteriously absent from the list, and there's speculation it's because Arthur's mother was a Muggle or squib, though Arthur himself dismisses the whole thing as rubbish anyway. Voldemort's manipulation of these prejudices is masterful and horrifying. He's himself a half-blood. His father was a Muggle, but he positions himself as the champion of pure blood supremacy. He uses the existing prejudices, the fear some pure blood families have of losing their status and power, and twists it into justification for murder and terrorism. The Death Eaters attract people like Lucius Malfoy, who believe in blood purity, but also people like Barty Crouch Jr., who seem motivated more by the thrill of power and violence. And Voldemort maintains control through fear. Even his followers are terrified of him. It's a fascinating and disturbing look at how fascist movements operate, how they prey on existing prejudices and economic anxieties and turn them into genocidal ideology. Let's wander down to Diagon Alley for a bit, shall we? This is the main shopping district for wizards in London, hidden behind the Leaky Cauldron pub and accessible by tapping the correct brick in the wall. The first time Harry visits, it's this incredible moment of discovery. Everything he's been denied his whole life, his identity, his history, his world, it's all suddenly real and available to him. The shops are wonderfully varied, from Ollivander's where the wand chooses the wizard, to Flourish and Blot's selling spell books, to Madame Malkin's for robes, Elop's Owl Emporium for familiars, the apothecary for potion ingredients, and dozens more. Gringotts Bank towers over the street, run entirely by goblins. The goblins have a complicated relationship with the wizarding world, marked by centuries of rebellions and uneasy truces. Wizards have power, but goblins have their own fierce pride and their own magic that wands can't replicate. They're master metalworkers, and they view ownership differently than wizards do. When a goblin makes something, they believe it remains theirs, even if a wizard buys it, and it should be returned to the goblin's descendants upon the wizard's death. This fundamental disagreement has caused countless conflicts. Gringotts itself is supposedly the safest place in the world besides Hogwarts. The vaults are protected by every security measure imaginable, from complex locks to curses to dragons guarding the deepest high-security vaults. The thief's downfall in the deepest sections washes away all enchantments and disguises, which is how the goblins detect imposters. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione break into Bellatrix's vault in Deathly Hallows, it's an absolutely audacious heist, and they barely escape with their lives, riding the dragon up through the caverns and out into London. That scene is so thrilling and so mad. Ollivander's wand shop has been operating since 382 BCE, making wands of the finest quality. Mr. Ollivander remembers every wand he's ever sold, which is both impressive and slightly unsettling. His understanding of wand lore is unmatched. He explains to Harry that the wand chooses the wizard, and that we can never really know why a particular wand bonds with a particular person. Wands have cores, usually phoenix feather, dragon heartstring, or unicorn hair, though other materials exist. They're made from different woods, each with its own properties and preferences. The wand Harry receives, Holly with phoenix feather, is brother to Voldemort's wand, sharing a core from the same phoenix, Fawkes. This connection becomes crucial multiple times in the story. Borgin and Burke's is down in Nocturne Alley, the dark mirror to Diagon Alley, where less savory shopping happens. They deal in dark artifacts, cursed objects, and items of questionable legality. Young Tom Riddle worked there after graduating Hogwarts, using his position to identify valuable dark objects owned by old wizarding families, then stealing them. It's where he acquired Slytherin's locket and Hufflepuff's cup from Hepzibah Smith, charming her, then murdering her, and framing her house elf. Borgin and Burke's represents the underbelly of wizarding commerce, the market for things that shouldn't be bought or sold. Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, opened by Fred and George, is such a joyful contrast. It's bright, colorful, chaotic, and full of joke products that range from harmless fun to genuinely useful magic. Their skiving snack boxes help students get out of class. Their shield hats, shield cloaks, and shield gloves actually provide protection from minor to moderate jinxes and hexes. The Ministry even orders hundreds of them for use by their employees. Fred and George proved that creativity and humor could also be profitable and even genuinely helpful. The shop becomes a beacon of light during the darkest times, a reminder that joy and laughter matter, maybe especially when things are terrible. The Daily Prophet is the main wizarding newspaper, and like any media institution, it has tremendous power to shape public opinion. We see throughout the series how the Prophet can be used for both information and propaganda. Rita Skeeter exemplifies the worst of journalism, using an illegal animagus form to spy on people and writing sensationalized half-truths designed to sell papers and destroy reputations. Her articles about Harry, Hermione, and Hagrid cause real damage. When the Ministry wants to discredit Harry and Dumbledore in Order of the Phoenix, the Prophet becomes their mouthpiece, printing lie after lie. The Quibbler, edited by Luna's father, Xenophilius Lovegood, is seen as a joke by most of the wizarding world. It prints conspiracy theories and stories about creatures that probably don't exist. But when the Prophet won't print the truth about Voldemort's return, the Quibbler gives Harry a platform. Sometimes the supposedly unreliable sources are the ones willing to print uncomfortable truths that the establishment media won't touch. After Harry's interview runs, the Quibbler's circulation explodes. People are hungry for an alternative narrative, something beyond the Ministry's propaganda. Time magic is some of the most dangerous and restricted magic that exists. Time turners are extremely rare, highly regulated devices that allow the user to travel backward in time. They look like tiny hourglasses on chains, and each full turn moves the user back 1 hour. The Ministry keeps them all locked in the Department of Mysteries, and they're only given out in extraordinary circumstances with tremendous restrictions. Hermione receives one in her 3rd year, so she can attend multiple classes at the same time, which honestly seems like a waste of such a powerful and dangerous device. But it does allow her to save Buckbeak and Sirius later, so perhaps Dumbledore had a longer game in mind when he arranged for her to have it. The rules of time travel in the Harry Potter universe are interesting. It seems to follow a closed-loop model, where anything a time traveler does in the past has already happened. When Harry and Hermione go back to save Buckbeak and Sirius, they're not changing the timeline, they're fulfilling it. The Harry who cast the Patronus to save himself from the Dementors was future Harry all along. He didn't change the past, he enacted it. This avoids most paradoxes, but it raises the question of free will. If everything that will happen has already happened, do we really have choices? The Department of Mysteries maintains strict protocols around time turners precisely because misuse could be catastrophic. In the battle at the Ministry in Order of the Phoenix, all the time turners are destroyed, every single one. Whether this was deliberate, whether Dumbledore or someone else ensured they'd be destroyed to prevent Voldemort from using them, or whether it was just collateral damage, we don't know. But afterward, time travel is no longer an option for anyone, which removes a significant danger. Apparition is the primary form of magical transportation for adult wizards. It's the ability to magically transport yourself from one location to another instantly. It requires concentration, determination, and deliberation, the 3 Ds that instructors teach. You have to be absolutely clear about where you're going and commit completely to the action, or you risk splinching, which is leaving part of yourself behind. Splinching is incredibly painful and can be fatal if you leave behind something vital. Ron gets splinched in Deathly Hallows when they're fleeing from Death Eaters, losing a chunk of his arm, and it takes multiple applications of healing potions and Hermione's quick thinking to save him. You can't apparate inside Hogwarts because of powerful protective enchantments. Same with the Ministry of Magic and other secure locations. Anti-apparition jinxes can be placed on areas to prevent people from apparating in or out, which is a common security measure. You also need a license to apparate legally, and you must be 17 years old. The test involves apparating precisely to a marked location, and the examiners are looking for clean execution without splinching. It's one of those coming-of-age milestones in the wizarding world, getting your apparition license. Side-along apparition is when a qualified witch or wizard takes someone with them, useful for underage wizards or anyone who can't apparate themselves. Dumbledore does this with Harry multiple times. There's also the ability to disapparate, the act of leaving, and to apparate, arriving. The sensation is described as being squeezed through a tight rubber tube, quite unpleasant but quick. The Floo network is older and more regulated. It connects fireplaces across the wizarding world, allowing travel by stepping into green Floo flames after throwing Floo powder and clearly stating your destination. You can also use it just for communication, sticking your head in the fire to talk to someone at another fireplace. The Ministry regulates which fireplaces are connected to the network, and they can monitor or shut down connections. During the war, this becomes a security concern because Death Eaters can track Floo network usage. Portkeys are objects enchanted to transport anyone touching them to a specific location at a specific time. They can be any object, usually something innocuous that won't be picked up by accident. The Triwizard Cup is turned into a portkey by Barty Crouch Jr., transporting Harry and Cedric to the graveyard where Voldemort is waiting. The feeling of using a portkey is described as a hook behind the navel, yanking you forward, tumbling through colors and wind until you land, usually not gracefully. Portkeys require ministry approval to create, as unauthorized portkeys could be used for kidnapping or smuggling. The veil in the Department of Mysteries is one of the most mysterious and haunting objects in the entire series. It's an ancient stone archway with a tattered black veil hanging in it, fluttering despite there being no breeze. It sits in a room in the Department of Mysteries, and there's a deep pit around it, with stone benches rising in tiers, like it was built for an audience. Voices whisper from beyond the veil, and some people can hear them, while others can't. Luna and Harry can hear them. Hermione and Ron cannot. Those who can hear them describe it as voices of people they knew who died, calling to them, almost inviting them through. When Sirius falls through the veil during the battle at the Ministry, he's simply gone, dead. There's no body, no coming back. Whatever is beyond the veil, it's death or something equivalent to it. The archway seems to be some kind of threshold between life and death, a liminal space that the Department of Mysteries studies but doesn't fully understand. The fact that they keep it, that they study it, suggests they're trying to understand death itself, what lies beyond, whether there's any way to reach through. The question of who can hear the voices seems connected to experience with death. Harry has watched people die. Luna's mother died in front of her when she was 9, a botched magical experiment. Those who've been touched closely by death seem more attuned to whatever lies beyond the veil. It's a beautiful and terrible piece of world building, this physical representation of the boundary we can't cross and return from. Prophecies are curious things in the wizarding world. True prophecies are extremely rare, made by real seers in moments when they're overtaken by something beyond themselves. Professor Trelawney makes 2 real prophecies in the entire series, despite teaching divination for years. The first is about Voldemort and Harry, made before Harry was even born. The second is about Wormtail returning to Voldemort. Both times, Trelawney herself has no memory of speaking the prophecy. Her voice changes. Her manner changes completely, and then it's over, and she doesn't know what she said. The Department of Mysteries records all prophecies and stores them in the Hall of Prophecy, endless rows of dusty glass spheres on shelves. Each sphere contains a recording of a prophecy, and only the people the prophecy is about can touch the sphere and hear its contents. Anyone else who tries will be driven mad or killed by the protective enchantments. This is why Voldemort needed to lure Harry to the Department of Mysteries in Order of the Phoenix. He couldn't retrieve the prophecy himself. The prophecy about Harry and Voldemort is fascinating because it's so specific and yet so open to interpretation. It states that the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies, to parents who've thrice defied him, and that the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal. Either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The power the Dark Lord knows not is what will lead to his defeat. But here's the thing. The prophecy could have been about Neville Longbottom. He was also born in late July. His parents had also defied Voldemort 3 times. Voldemort chose to go after the Potters instead, chose to mark Harry, and in doing so, he made the prophecy about Harry specifically. Dumbledore explains this to Harry, that prophecies only have power if people believe in them and act on them. Voldemort's belief in the prophecy and his actions based on that belief are what gave it power. If he'd ignored it, if he'd never tried to kill baby Harry, none of it would have come true. The power Voldemort knows not is love, of course. It's stated explicitly, eventually, though it's obvious throughout the series. Voldemort doesn't understand love, doesn't value it, sees it as weakness. He doesn't comprehend that Lily's sacrifice would protect Harry, that Harry's willingness to die for his friends would protect them, that connection and love are the most powerful magic of all. His inability to understand this is his greatest weakness and ultimately his downfall. Other forms of divination are treated with varying levels of respect in the wizarding world. Tea leaf reading, crystal ball gazing, dream interpretation. These are all taught at Hogwarts, but are seen as woolly and imprecise by many. Hermione openly disdains divination, as does Professor McGonagall, who's quite rude about Trelawney's dramatic predictions of doom. But centaurs practice a form of divination based on reading the stars and planets, and their predictions are taken much more seriously. Ferenzi explains that they're reading the movements of celestial bodies and interpreting the patterns, looking at vast sweeps of time and fate rather than individual fortunes. It's less about seeing the future and more about understanding the great tides of destiny. The question of what happens after death is central to the entire series, and yet it remains beautifully mysterious. Dumbledore calls death the next great adventure, and he seems genuinely curious about it rather than afraid. The wizarding world has clear evidence that something persists after death. Ghosts exist, proving that some aspect of consciousness can remain. The resurrection stone can call up shades of the dead, though they're not truly alive and don't want to be called back. Harry sees his parents and Sirius and Lupin in the forest before he dies, and they're real enough to comfort him and walk with him. And then there's Harry's experience in King's Cross after Voldemort hits him with the killing curse. He finds himself in a bright, clean version of the station, and Dumbledore is there. They talk. Dumbledore explains about Horcruxes and Harry's sacrifice and the Elder Wand, and Harry asks if any of this is real or if it's all in his head. Dumbledore's response is perfect. Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry. But why on earth should that mean it's not real? It's such a profound statement about the nature of consciousness and reality and subjective experience. So, what is that place? Is it an afterlife? A transitional space? A projection of Harry's own dying mind? The books don't give a definitive answer, and I think that's deliberate. What matters is that Harry has a choice. He can move on, go forward, embrace death. Or he can go back. And he chooses to go back, not because he fears death, but because he has things left to do, people to protect. His choice to return mirrors, his mother's choice to die for him. It's love, again, making the impossible possible. Ghosts in the wizarding world are described as imprints of souls who chose to stay behind rather than moving on. Nearly Headless Nick explains this to Harry in Order of the Phoenix. Wizards who fear death, who have unfinished business or can't let go of life, they can choose to become ghosts, but it's a pale imitation of life. Ghosts can't feel, can't taste, can't experience anything physical. They drift through their old haunts, clinging to the places and sometimes the grievances they had in life. Nick is still bitter about his botched beheading 500 years later. The Bloody Baron and the Grey Lady have the most tragic story among Hogwarts ghosts. The Grey Lady is Helena Ravenclaw, Rowena's daughter, who stole her mother's diadem and ran away. The Baron was sent to find her and bring her back. He loved her, she refused him, and in his rage and despair, he killed her, then killed himself out of remorse. Now they're both trapped as ghosts, reliving that tragedy forever. The Baron wears chains as penance, and Helena carries the guilt of stealing from her mother and indirectly causing her death from a broken heart. Moaning Myrtle is a ghost, but of a different sort. Wasn't given much choice in the matter, really. She was killed by the basilisk when Tom Riddle opened the Chamber of Secrets, died in that bathroom, and came back as a ghost to haunt it. She's perpetually miserable, crying about her death, about being mocked for her appearance, about being alone. It's quite sad, really. She latched on to Harry a bit because he was kind to her, listened to her, and she ends up being helpful more than once, giving clues about the chamber and later about the egg in the goblet of fire. Peeves is not a ghost, he's a poltergeist, which is apparently a different thing entirely. He's chaos incarnate, never was alive and never died, just is and always has been. He delights in causing mayhem, dropping water balloons on students' heads, making rude noises, singing insulting songs. The staff can't get rid of him. Even Dumbledore has to negotiate with him. The only person Peeves ever showed respect to was Fred and George, who told him to give hell to Umbridge on their behalf as they flew out of Hogwarts. Peeves saluted them, which is possibly his highest honor. The Resurrection Stone's promise is a false one, which is part of why it's so dangerous. It doesn't truly bring people back. The shades it summons are shadows, echoes, neither properly dead nor properly alive. They don't belong in the world of the living anymore, and being pulled back causes them pain, or at least discomfort. Cadmus Peverell learned this when he summoned his dead beloved and found her cold and sad and separated from him by an invisible veil. He killed himself to properly join her, which is exactly what death wanted. The stone is a trap for the grieving. But when Harry uses it in the forest, it's different. He's not trying to bring them back or keep them with him. He's saying goodbye, drawing strength from their presence as he walks to his death. His parents, Sirius and Lupin, appear to him, and they're warm and loving. They tell him it won't hurt, dying. They walk with him. And then, crucially, Harry drops the stone. He lets it fall into the leaves and moss, and he doesn't look back. He doesn't try to hold on to them. He accepts that they're gone and that he's about to join them. That's the right way to meet death, with love and acceptance rather than denial and grasping. Inferi are something else entirely, bodies of the dead reanimated by dark magic. Voldemort creates them to guard the locket Horcrux in the cave. They're corpses, pure and simple, controlled by the dark wizard who raised them. They have no will, no consciousness, just an animated shell following commands. They're repelled by fire, which is how Dumbledore drives them back in the cave. Creating Inferi is dark magic, a desecration of the dead, using their bodies as tools. It's considered highly illegal and deeply unethical, but of course Voldemort doesn't care about such things. Wand lore is this deep and complicated branch of magic that most wizards don't fully understand. Ollivander is the expert, and even he admits there are mysteries he hasn't solved. The basic principle is that the wand chooses the wizard, not the other way around. A wand bonds with a witch or wizard and works best for them, but wands can change allegiance. If a wizard is disarmed, if someone takes their wand by force, the wand's allegiance may shift. This is especially true of powerful wands like the Elder Wand, which only follows strength. The twin cores of Harry and Voldemort's wands create that incredible effect in the graveyard during Goblet of Fire, Priori Incantatem, where the wands connect and force Voldemort's wand to regurgitate echoes of the spells it's cast in reverse order. Harry sees his parents, Cedric, Frank Bryce, Bertha Jorkins, all emerging as golden shadows from the thread of light connecting the wands. It's beautiful and eerie and gives Harry the chance to escape. Those few moments when his parents' shades distract Voldemort and tell Harry to hold on, to run when the connection breaks, it's heartbreaking and wonderful. The Elder Wand's allegiance passing from Dumbledore to Draco to Harry without Voldemort ever realizing it is the key to the entire endgame. Voldemort assumes that killing Snape, who he believes killed Dumbledore, will make him the wand's master. But Draco disarmed Dumbledore before Snape killed him, so the wand's allegiance went to Draco. Then Harry disarmed Draco at Malfoy Manor, so the wand became Harry's. Voldemort never understands this. When he and Harry duel in the Great Hall and both cast spells, Expelliarmus and Avada Kedavra, the Elder Wand refuses to kill its master. The killing curse rebounds on Voldemort, and he dies by his own curse, killed by his own inability to understand magic that wasn't about force and domination. Broomsticks are the most common way for wizards to fly, and there's been significant development in broomstick technology over the years. The Nimbus series, particularly the Nimbus 2000 and later the Nimbus 2001, were top-of-the-line racing brooms for years. Then the Firebolt came out and blew everything else away, capable of incredible speeds and handling. It's the broom professional Quidditch players use, and it's phenomenally expensive. Sirius buys one for Harry, which is such a wonderfully generous and slightly over-the-top Godfather thing to do. Flying on a broomstick requires balance, nerve, and some innate magical ability. Most witches and wizards can learn to fly at least adequately, but some people like Harry have natural talent for it. Harry's first time on a broom, he's immediately comfortable and skilled, which makes sense given his seeker abilities. Other people, like Neville, struggle with it and never really enjoy flying. And then there are people like Hermione who can do it but don't love it, prefer to keep their feet on the ground, thank you very much. A pensive is this beautiful magical object that stores memories. It looks like a shallow stone basin with runes carved around the rim, filled with a silvery substance that's somewhere between liquid and gas. Wizards can extract memories from their own minds using their wand, pulling out the silvery strand, and place it in the pensive. Then they, or anyone else, can enter the memory, experiencing it as an observer. You can move around, look at details you didn't notice the first time, though you can't interact or change anything. Dumbledore uses his pensive to show Harry memories throughout Half-Blood Prince, memories of Voldemort's past, collected from various sources. Some are complete and accurate. Others, like Slughorn's memory, are tampered with, showing how a memories can be altered or hidden. The ability to revisit memories exactly as they happened, or as the person remembers them happening, is incredibly useful for investigation and understanding. But it also raises questions about privacy and consent, about what it means to have your memories viewed by others. Magical portraits are everywhere in the wizarding world, and they're far more than just paintings. They can move, talk, visit other portraits of themselves in different locations, and even carry messages. Hogwarts is full of them, and they're basically a communication network throughout the castle. The headmaster portraits in Dumbledore's office are supposed to give advice to current headmasters, drawing on their knowledge and experience. Though they're not truly the people they represent, they're sophisticated magical imprints with the person's knowledge and personality up to the point the portrait was made. Portraits can lie, can refuse to answer questions, can be loyal to the person who commissioned them. They have their own preferences and personalities. The fat lady guards Gryffindor Tower and enjoys singing opera terribly. Phineas Nigellus. Black is cantankerous and makes snarky comments. Sir Cadogan is overly enthusiastic and challenges people to duels. The portraits add so much life and history to the wizarding world, creating a sense of continuity with the past. Now we should talk about the First Wizarding War, because it set the stage for everything that happens in Harry's story. Tom Riddle's transformation into Lord Voldemort happened gradually. He was born to a witch mother who'd used a love potion on a Muggle man, and that mother died in childbirth, leaving Tom to grow up in a grim London orphanage. Even as a child, he was different. He could make things happen when he was angry or upset. He could talk to snakes. He hurt other children and took their things, and he felt no remorse. When Dumbledore came to bring him to Hogwarts, he already saw the warning signs. Tom was charming when he wanted to be, but there was something hollow behind it. At Hogwarts, he was brilliant, handsome, charismatic. He gathered followers, students who were attracted to his power and his ideology. He learned everything he could about magic, especially dark magic. He became obsessed with immortality, with conquering death. He opened the Chamber of Secrets, killed Myrtle, framed Hagrid for it, and created his first Horcrux. After leaving Hogwarts, he disappeared for years, traveling, learning more dark magic, gathering power. When he returned, he was changed. No longer handsome Tom Riddle, but something else, something less human. He'd split his soul multiple times by then. He'd shed his father's surname and taken the name Lord Voldemort, an anagram of his full name, Tom Marvolo Riddle, because he wanted to erase his Muggle heritage and create a new identity built on fear. The First Wizarding War was brutal. Voldemort and his Death Eaters hunted Muggleborns, killed anyone who opposed them, used the Imperious Curse to control ministry officials, spread terror throughout magical Britain. People were afraid to trust anyone, afraid their neighbor or colleague might be under the Imperious Curse, or secretly a Death Eater. The Ministry struggled to fight back because Voldemort's tactics were ruthless in ways that made traditional law enforcement inadequate. The Order of the Phoenix formed as a resistance group, operating outside official Ministry channels. Dumbledore gathered people willing to fight, to risk their lives against Voldemort. James and Lily Potter were members, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, Peter Pettigrew, Frank and Alice Longbottom, the Prewett brothers, Molly Weasley's brothers, who fought like heroes and died fighting Death Eaters. So many casualties, so many families destroyed. James and Lily were in hiding with baby Harry, protected by the Fidelius charm. This charm hides a secret inside a single person, the Secret Keeper. And no one can find the secret unless the Secret Keeper reveals it. They chose Peter Pettigrew, believing he was the least obvious choice, that no one would suspect him. But Peter had already betrayed them, had already gone over to Voldemort out of cowardice and opportunism. He gave Voldemort their location. On Halloween night in 1981, Voldemort came to Godric's Hollow. He killed James first, who died trying to give Lily time to escape with Harry. Then he offered Lily a choice: stand aside and let him kill the baby, and she could live. Snape had begged Voldemort to spare her, you see, but Lily refused. She begged Voldemort to take her instead, to kill her rather than Harry. And when he killed her anyway, her sacrifice created ancient magic, a protection Voldemort didn't understand and couldn't anticipate. When he tried to kill Harry, the curse rebounded. Voldemort's body was destroyed, and the piece of his soul that remained was ripped from it and forced to flee, less than a ghost, barely alive because of the Horcruxes anchoring him to the world. Harry survived with nothing but a lightning bolt scar on his forehead and a fragment of Voldemort's soul lodged inside him, making him the unintentional seventh Horcrux. The aftermath was chaotic. Sirius, who'd been James's best friend, was blamed for betraying them and for killing Peter Pettigrew, along with 12 Muggles. In reality, Peter faked his own death, killed those Muggles to create chaos and witnesses, then transformed into a rat and disappeared. Sirius was thrown into Azkaban without a trial, and Peter lived as the Weasley family pet for 12 years. Meanwhile, Harry was sent to the Dursleys, where Lily's blood protection would keep him safe from Voldemort's followers, but where he'd be neglected and mistreated for a decade. The First War's scars run deep through the wizarding community. People lost family, lost friends, lost their sense of safety. Paranoia lingered for years afterward. And when Voldemort returned in Harry's 4th year, many people couldn't face the reality of it, couldn't accept that it was all happening again. The Ministry's denial, Fudge's refusal to believe, cost them a crucial year when they could have been preparing. By the time the Second War fully began, Voldemort had already regained so much power. Looking at all this lore, all these layers of history and magic and tragedy, it really highlights what makes the Harry Potter world so compelling. It's not just the surface story of a boy fighting a dark wizard. It's the depth, the sense that this world existed long before Harry and will continue after him, that there are mysteries we never fully solve, and histories that reach back centuries. The magic has rules, but also wonder. The society has structure, but also terrible flaws and prejudices that need challenging. And at the center of it all is this question of what makes us who we are, what choices we make when faced with darkness, whether love and sacrifice and simple human goodness can stand against cruelty and fear. Harry's story says yes, they can, they do. Not because Harry is special, though he is, in some ways, but because he chooses kindness and courage and loyalty again and again. Because his friends stand with him. Because people like his mother made impossible sacrifices. Because even in the darkest times, there are people who resist, who fight back, who hold on to hope. The lore enriches all of that, gives weight and context to the choices characters make. When we understand the history of blood purity rhetoric, we better understand why it's so insidious. When we know the horrors of Azkaban, we appreciate the injustice of Sirius's imprisonment even more. When we learn about Horcruxes, we grasp the true cost of Voldemort's quest for immortality. The lore isn't just trivia, it's the foundation that makes the story resonate. I hope this journey through the hidden corners of the wizarding world has been as relaxing and enjoyable for you as it's been for me to share. There's always more to discover, more connections to make, more questions to ponder. The wonderful thing about a world as rich as this is that you can return to it again and again and find something new, some detail you missed, or some implication you hadn't considered. So, as we come to the end of our time together tonight, I want to thank you for listening, for letting me ramble on about cursed objects and magical creatures and the intricacies of time travel and wand lore. I hope you're feeling cozy and relaxed, ready to drift off into dreams of Hogwarts corridors and Diagon Alley shops. of spells and potions and magical mysteries waiting to be solved. May your rest be peaceful, your dreams be magical, and may you always find the platform when you need it. Good night, and thank you for joining me on this adventure through wizarding lore. Until next time, mischief managed.
you.